Hello and welcome to Asia Gaming Brief's face-to-face series. Today I'm joined by Michael French. He's now head of consulting firm MD French and Associates and has just returned to the United States after a long career in Asia. He talks about some of his experiences, the openings and the challenges that he faced. What projects were you actually on for Suncity?
Suncity, we had Vladivostok, spent a lot of time with Hoyana because that needed, we had a lot of problems with new property, needed a lot of tweaking as any new property does. And then COVID just really threw all the cards up in the air. Hoyana was no local gambling, and of course nobody could enter into the country, so you're kind of stuck. Like, what do we do for customers? And so we had some actions we had taken to at least get a little bit. Anyway, so it was Hoyana, and then Vladivostok, the Tiger de Crystal, and then Manila was being developed. So I spent time working with the design team and providing technical advice and direction, and as well as putting together the operating plans and strategies for that one. Manila was supposed to open in 2023 actually 2022 when I first joined, and then it was 2023, and now I think, depending on COVID, it could be 2025 was the last date we looked at.
But it is going ahead.
To my knowledge, I don't know. Since I left, I don't know what the current status is. It's under a different ownership group. It's really owned by a company called SunTrust, which is a partnership between Suncity and Travelers. It's 51-49, I think. And Travelers owns the gaming license and the land. So I would imagine that SunTrust still exists. It was fully funded, and that they will move ahead with the development. It would certainly makes sense to me. There's really nothing in their way other than they need to raise a lot more money.
So what was he like as a person, apart from the fact you couldn't really communicate that much?
Well, Alvin is a real, he's got a real presence to him. So when you're sitting with him, you feel like this is somebody important. He was very, at least to me, in the settings I was in, he was casual in his demeanor, but still, he had this good combination of strong and nice at the same time. So he was considerate and polite of others. He was not a pushy boss at all. He liked to explain why he wanted to do things. So he wasn't just a go do it and that's it. So I thought he was quite an impressive guy. When I first had my eye on Suncity about 5 or 6 years ago, when I saw they were moving into operations, I thought, well, this is perfect. They're all about junkets, and I'm all about mass because I'm VIP. From an operator's point of view, operators don't do much with VIP. You just deal the games and handle the cage, and that's it. You don't get involved in all the particulars. That's what the junket does. So I thought I could bring a whole skill set to them that they didn't have, because they were going to develop this company. And 6 years ago, the world was different. And Alvin looked like he was the Steve Wynn of Asia. That's what we're all thinking. Like, hey, it's all about him. Because I think the casino business, by the way, it's an interesting topic, has lost that creative drive. There aren't really many entrepreneurs out there willing to take a risk and do something new, like Sheldon did, like Steve Wynn did. The things those guys did in the past, no one would ever take that chance now. They're all just too afraid to do it because there's too much risk. And most of the companies now are just worried about the quarterly reports, what it does to the stock. So no one's going to do sweeping innovation. Well, I thought Alvin could do that.
So obviously you were at Suncity most recently, and now you're back in the States. What made you take that decision? Why not stay in Asia?
Well, U.S. is my home base, and I didn't have anything to go into because of the surprise nature of Suncity's ceasing business. No one was looking for that. It's just a nice Friday evening, and here comes all these texts from everyone saying Alvin's arrested. So that changed the game. Nobody knew what to do. The company wasn't paying anyone at the time. The company didn't know what their future was going to be. And about 2 weeks later, they officially closed the company. So being there on a blue card, I thought the best thing for me was to go back home to a safe space until things can get sorted out. Certainly not with Suncity, because that opportunity is done now.
And how long were you in Macau in total?
in total, I would put it about 8 years or so, 8 to 10 years, somewhere in there. I first went to Macau in 2007, and then I left in 2012 to join Solaire, or Global Gaming Asset Management. We have the contract for Solaire. And then I went back to Macau in 2018, working with Paul Baker at the Grand Lisboa Palace. I was overseeing all the pre-opening activities and timelines and things like that.
So you were there
together about, I call it 8 years.
You were there really in the run up to the peak times, the real good times in Macau. What did you see?
Yeah, I was there. The exciting time was at the beginning. I got there in 2007. So this was really Wild West then. Wynn was open, Star World was open, Venetian was about to open. I was on the City of Dreams project. I was the SVP for all operations there. I was the first employee for City of Dreams, by the way. I was there 2 years before opening. And my role was to come in and represent operations and be a part of the designing and construction of the project team, so that I could give them the details of what kind of services we needed to be able to offer, what kind of facilities we needed to support those services, and so forth. So when I got there in 2007, Crown had just opened. I mean, it was Altira, is what it is now. Then it was Crown. So it was really Wild West days, is a good way to put it. It was a new model. Sands had opened in what, 2000, was it 4? I think somewhere around there, but when Sands opened, that really changed the whole game. And of course, Wynn was open, but he did it in a small way. He was a little cautious. And then City of Dreams, we came in with the big project. And then of course, Venetian opened in 2008. So back in those days, it was all about VIP. That was the huge revenues, and it was all about junkets. So there were no aggregators like Alvin. That was, golly, I think one time, and Altira, then it was Crown, probably had 30 or 40 different junket operators, each of which had their own area, their own window, their own cage. It was really quite bizarre. It was all about that. It was all about VIP. And there was really no focus on mass. No one really cared much about slot machines. Venetian put a lot of slot machines in, but the local the customers and the operators, they didn't really care much about slots. I don't think at that time the local players trusted slots. I think they thought they could be fixed, and so they were slow to take up slots. So it was all about table games, and it was all about VIP. Even in table games, mass market wasn't considered very important. It was really just pushing all about just the VIP, which is nice from a revenue point of view, I guess. Back in those days, the revenue number was, about this long. The margin is quite low, 10 to 13% margin. But when your revenue number is huge like that, that's all right. And then as that shrunk, of course, then that's the problem that we're in today, is how do you supplement that? So over those years, and when I was first here, it was all about VIP. Nobody really cared about mass. City of Dreams, if I can tell our story there, when we opened, it was 2009. And at that time, the crisis was a global financial crisis. You may remember that. And so business had really, really come to a super slowdown. And we were just watching any revenue dollar we could get, started monitoring our business. And we found there were some mass players that weren't so bad. There were some mass players that were playing a pretty good average bet per hand. Now, this is in 2009. So we decided to go after that market. We started to develop mass when nobody was talking about it. We actually at City Dreams coined the phrase premium mass. And I've been arguing with various colleagues from that time forward about that term, because people say, oh, there is no such thing as premium mass. Back then, that's what they said. Now, of course, that's the savior for the industry. But then what we found, a lot of these players were Hong Kong people that had lots of cash. They didn't want to get involved with junkets. They didn't want to have credit. They wanted to play on their own, but because they were mass players, they were treated as second-class citizens, if you will. No mass player could have a private room, let's say. Only VIP could get a private room back in that day. So we were the first to take an area and we dedicated it to this premium mass, and it had private rooms, and we let people play there at a certain limit. and it took off like a rocket. So City of Dreams, really, that program started the whole premium mass movement.
Where do you see the market going from here?
In most markets, the market dictates where it's going to go, the supply and demand thing. In China, the government has a plan and they can engineer it, and then you adapt to that. So I think the government has an idea of where they want it to go, and that's what they're going to continue to work on doing. They've been sending these signals for a long time, where you hear the government always saying, we want to diversify Macau, we want to diversify Macau, and all the operators say, yeah, that's nice, so we'll put on a show, and then the show goes broke. So there's really no true diversification of experiences. So so the government certainly has a plan, and that's getting revealed little by little. The incident with Alvin kind of showed that, okay, look, we're tired of this. We wanted you guys to change your model. You wouldn't do it. So we took some extreme action on your behalf. And I think, what's the expression they use? In China, the government likes to drop a pebble in the water, and then you should be able to read the waves. And if you can't figure it out and you just ignore it, then you're going to get caught in a bad situation sooner or later. So they've been dropping these pebbles for a while. So here's what I think Macau can do. It can re-engineer itself to be more of a mass destination for tourists, for conventions. It can do a lot of the same as an entertainment capital. It can do a lot of the same things Vegas did, I suppose. Let's consider Las Vegas for a minute. Las Vegas is in the middle of the desert. No one wants to go there. It's a terrible place, but now geographically, but now it's this huge entertainment capital. So it was contrived, it was invented. I was in Vegas from 95 until 2002. And that was the time where it was shifting from a gaming centric economy to a non-gaming, where it became more of an entertainment capital. I worked directly for Sheldon Adelson at the Venetian Vegas. I was in charge of operations. His business plan was all about conventions. And that, before gaming, that was my background. I was a convention hotel operator. So that was a brilliant plan. Conventions are great sources of revenue. They're great for the community. It's all clean dollars. They pay huge room rates. We made more money from banquet sales than we did from gaming at the Venetian. So Sheldon's model is perfect for Vegas. It was really all about the non-gaming thing. So why could you do conventions? Because there's 100,000 hotel rooms. So you have the room capacity. They're giant properties. You can do groups inside one building. You had a lot of meeting space. And people liked the notion of going to Vegas because it was kind of fun, exciting things to do. So attendance for conventions was always the best when it was scheduled for Vegas. So could Macau do the same thing? I suppose they could. So Macau has some of the infrastructure. They have these huge buildings. They have lots of hotels, meeting space. Of course, Venetian has plenty. Galaxy's building a lot of meeting space. I think what needs to change for Macau to really become a convention destination is that there's some laws that have to be changed locally about how samples and products can be brought in for exhibit shows. And the government needs to make the laws a little more convention friendly. The one primary reason conventions don't work in Macau today is because China doesn't advocate holding group conventions in a gaming destination. So if the government in China were to say, oh, Macau's an okay convention site for all you guys, that would do it. Then they'd have to expand the airport, which I think the way that Macau creates land, I mean, I make it sound easy. It's not easy to do, but they could probably create another couple of runways real quick if they needed to.
Well, let's move on to the Philippines, because you were also instrumental in Soler, obviously very different market. What's your experience there? What were the biggest challenges that you had in the Philippines?
The challenges in the Philippines are really the culture of the government. It's a pretty corrupt place. That's the reputation that the country has, and it's quite true. So Filipinos know how to do business within the Filipino system. Foreigners can't really do business. There are a lot of times we would come up on an issue where we needed some permits or something from the government, and we as foreigners couldn't do anything about it. On the positive side, from a gaming point of view, certainly a gaming culture. The locals play. They like playing. It's much more, here's what I found within 2 weeks. Philippines is more like the US than it's like Macau. It's not at all like Macau, quite honestly. It's the Philippines was a US protectorate for a long time. And the locals see US as their standard. That's what they want to be like. So adapting from US to Philippines is pretty easy. They like slot machines. They like rewards programs. Everything that works in the States works there. Then on top of that, you have the Asian table games players. In the junkets, there's casual junkets, those local junkets. It's a pretty dodgy world in some of these local junkets. But that's you have a good solid base with local slot players, which is great. People seem to forget that it's really more about slots in Philippines than it is about the tables. The property we built was beautiful. The owner had quite a vision. We got it open on time, on budget. It was a really good, smooth opening, and I started a good foundation for them. And Tom Arossi and team have done a great job over the years in building it into what it is.
Thank you for joining us today. Please join us every Friday for our interviews with thought leaders in Asia's gaming industry.